I don't know. I'm trying. That's what I need to get. That's what I need to get that thing going, right? To get me going. So we're going out of the third promise that we've done in I don't know how many months we've been in these things, man. But Romans 8:28 is the third promise, and that is what? All things what?
Work together for the good of those who love the Lord.
All things work together for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So we kind of got off on over here in Exodus 13 and then Exodus 14 and why, as we start, why have we been going, what we've been going through is the Egyptians chasing the Israelites and the Israelites getting out of Egypt, and they're going and they go a different way than they thought they were wanting to go. They went down through the, by the wilderness into the Red Sea. And so why does this kind of tie around with Romans 8:28? Why do we say that? What are they going through? Are they going through something that they want to be going through? Are they going through something that's easy?
Stand firm and wait.
They're having to stand firm. They're having to wait. They don't see the outcome. They don't understand the outcome. They don't see what's going on. They don't see why they had to go that path. Why they couldn't just go the easier path. They just don't get it, right? And the Lord, and I think that in the way that I bring that around to us is that in our life, I mean, I know a lot of us, I've heard, just a bunch of people that are, I don't really understand why God has had me go through the things I've gone through, what the purpose of those things are, how the outcome is going to be, whatever. And we just got to fall back on the promise of Romans 8:28. It's saying, that all things work together for good to those that love God and that are called according to his purpose. We don't understand it, but do we need to understand it? Do we need to understand what he's doing? We really don't. It is not we just need to believe, right? By faith. And is that hard? Yeah. And that's why they say this is a promise that is really a deeper promise, because it goes to a different level that I've got to believe whether I see it or I don't see it. And that for me, we are just believing on things that I'm believing that I'm going to see the outcome. I'm believing that I'm going to see God glorified. I'm believing that everything's going to work out for good. And I'm just staying on that path, whether I see it or I don't see it. And that's what we need to tell ourselves, right? We just need to keep going back to the word and keep believing that and keep trusting and keep seeing. And I'm telling you, you look back on your life, right? And there's things that we've been through in our life that we don't really, when we were in those things, we didn't really understand why we were going through those things either, and how those ever could turn out to be good. And then you look back and you said, I see it now, so the thing that you're going through today, and that's what fruit of our trial, or the fruit of our suffering right now is going to be the seed of our suffering is going to be the fruit of our testimony. I believe that, man. The seed that is being laid right now is going to be our testimony. Hello, Mr. John. So that's why we're going through what we're going through, and we're kind of doing this. So we're going to go back over to Exodus 14. And then we're going to ask you to remember something or figure something out from last week, over there in the Psalm. And we're going to see if I get there, what we do in Psalm 34 and the goodness of God, right? So as we go back over here to Exodus 14, and we've been through, this is, like I said, as you're in there, the Egyptians are chasing the Israelites. They take their eyes off of God, right? They take their eyes off of the Egyptians, who are just kind of going on their path in kind of pilot mode. Next thing they know, they turn around and look up, and what? The Egyptians are right here following. And they're like, what in the world, man? And that's the same thing in our life. When we take our eyes off of the Lord, we take our eyes off the world, things going on, we get blindsided, do we not? And how do we react when we get blindsided? We about react the same way they did. And as you look at this, and I'm not going to go back through this, but as you look up here in verse 11, they talk about there's no graves in Egypt. You've taken us to die in the wilderness, right? And then they go down further on that, and they said, why have you dealt with us this way? Is there not the word that we said that we can stay in Egypt and serve there? Instead of coming out here in the wilderness to die. And we talked a lot about last week. What does it look like? And we were looking at, and I don't think I wrote it up there, but Colossians 3:23, right? Colossians 3:23. What does it say about serving? How are we to serve? How are we to serve? Does anybody remember? With a cheerful heart, as unto the Lord, heartily as unto the Lord, not as what? Men pleasers. What does that mean? That we don't serve and don't do, you could be out here having 5 different jobs, right? You could be out here doing all this good and you're doing it to be seen. I think that and your heart is not changed. What did we talk about today? The heart and the things that come out of that. And if I'm serving to be seen, and I'm serving to be recognized, and I'm serving to have people say, hey, look at you, what a great Christian he is, or what a great guy he is, or I'm telling you, do it heartily into the Lord. The reward is from the Lord, right? We need to serve God. I'm just telling you. And the more that we serve God, and the more that we put that into our heart, then what comes out of it? The goodness, right? The good fruit. That's we're sustaining our tree, or we're sustaining the thing that we're feeding ourselves, right? Feeding ourselves the word, feeding ourselves on good things, feeding ourselves on the truth. Because I'm telling you, what is the world trying to do? What do they try to do?
Keep us on the broad road, man.
They're trying to lie to. I mean, it's all about lies. It's all about junk. It's all about, you're good and you're whatever. And it's like, it's all a lie, and we need to really feed and serve on God. I'm telling you. So as you move down through there, verse 13, Moses said to the people, do not be afraid. We talked about this, standing still and seeing the salvation of the Lord. What is standing? What did we say standing was? Is that a passive thing for me to stand? What is it? If I'm out in a hurricane, or if I'm out in a windstorm, I'm out in a hailstorm, or I'm on the beach, man, and all of a sudden a big wind comes up and I get sandblasted. What does it mean to stand? Is that an active thing then? You've got to make a point to stand, right? Is it hard to stand in this world? Yeah. It's hard to stand in this world. Stand still. Do not be afraid. Deuteronomy 31:8 tells us, man, do not be afraid. The Lord is with us. He will not forsake us. He's the one going before us. He goes behind us. He goes beside us. See the salvation of the Lord, right? What he will accomplish for you today. And we went out of Romans 8:31. We are more than conquerors, right? You believe that? That is saying, not that I'm going to be more than a conqueror, right? You get the difference on that you are a conqueror, even in the midst of when we feel like we are not winning, when we feel like we are being destroyed. It does not matter. You are more than a conqueror in Christ, right? Stand firm in that. Don't let the world beat us down. I'm telling you, man, the world tries to beat us down. I've talked to just a ton of people that it's like, you're losing, man. You're losing. And it's like, no, I'm not, man. We are more than conquerors in Christ. There's nothing that can separate us from his love. There's nothing that can take us out. There's no tribulation, there's no persecution, there's no distance, there's nothing that can take us out.
Yeah, because when they see it as loss, we see it as pruning. We recognize it's pruning.
Right. That's exactly right. I was thinking yesterday when I was out there cutting those trees, man. Cutting those Leland cypress, man. I mean, I cut and cut and cut 5 hours, and I cut off the lower branches. And I called the place and I said, will this kill my trees? Will this kill the trees cutting those off? And they said, no, that won't kill the trees. Actually, what that does is that allows the tree to grow better because it's not feeding all these limbs, right? And that's what the Lord does to us, right? He cuts things off of us, and they may hurt, and may not feel good in it, but they're cutting these things off so that we can grow up in what we need to be growing up into. I mean, that's a good thing right there, but it never feels good to have things cut off. Right? Never feel good. No. And that's what the Lord's telling you, man. I'm cutting these things off, man. I'm trimming you up. I'm pruning you, right? So that you can serve me better. I'm telling you, man, if I have all these things that are hanging around, the Lord's like, man, you're just feeding energy, and it's something you don't be feeding energy, and let's get rid of that thing. You're holding on to it. I don't want to get rid of it. He's like, I don't give a rip if you do or not. I'm cutting that thing off. Be done with it. Anyway, moving forward. So it says, as we get down here into, I guess we're in verse 14, the Lord will fight for you and you shall hold your peace. What's he saying there? He's right before that, he's saying, look, the Lord's going to accomplish for you something today that you're going to see the Egyptians are going to be gone forever, right? And he's saying the Lord is going to fight for you, right? And you will hold your peace. What does that look like? What does that look like, holding our peace?
My version says you have only to be silent.
You have only to be silent.
Says you keep silent.
You keep silent. Shut your mouth. Do what you're supposed to do. Right? Stay calm, man. Stay focused. Stand still. Stand firm. Stand up. That's what he's telling us to do. What do we like to do? Just like the Israelites. What do we like to do? I don't do that, but you guys do that. I don't bellyache, I don't complain, and are you kidding me, man? I mean, that's now, so I want to look over here when you look at that, the Lord fighting for us and us waiting on his time. I want to look over there at Isaiah 40. And as you look at Isaiah 40, what do we know? What through the first 39 verses in Isaiah, or the first 39 chapters in Isaiah, what are they being? They're being rebuked and they're being hammered and then in Isaiah 40, what it does, the Lord turns and he starts to comfort his people, right? And this is a comforting verse right here as we look at Isaiah 40. And this is just standing still, staying in your peace, keeping quiet, keeping focused, doing what God tells you to do. And as you look at this Isaiah 40, and I want to look at this and kind of talk through this. 28, right? This is, you guys know these verses right here. And it says, have you not known? Have you not heard? The everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, neither faints nor is weary. What is that? What does that say to us right there? Have you not know? Do we not know, or do we not hear? Do we not understand that God is everlasting? Right? God is eternity. God is before you. God is now. God is forever. It says what? He neither faints nor is weary. Is that good for us to hear that? What do you think about when you think about that? What do I think about? Reassurance. Why is it reassurance?
He never tires.
He never tires, right? He doesn't grow weary. Do you ever think that when you're going to God that he ever thinks, Chad, I've heard you enough.
Yeah.
Right? I've heard you've been here with this over and over again, man. I'm worn out. I don't want to hear it anymore, man. I need a break. I need to quit that, right? What does this say? He never faints. He never grows weary. He never is at a point where he says, Chad, I've heard enough of your prayers. We've gone over this. And Chad, it's time to just stop coming to me. Right? What does the world do to us? What's the difference with the world? After a certain amount of time, they're like, you know what, man, I'm done listening to what you have to say. This is said, neither faints nor is weary. His understanding is what? His understanding is unsearchable. Right? He knows what our needs are. Right? He knows when we stand still and he tells us to stand. He knows what's coming. We don't understand it, but it says that his understanding is unsearchable. I'm telling you, all things work together for good. I know what I've got going on in your life. You just got to stand. You just got to breathe. You just got to continue to have faith in me, even though it doesn't look like it. I know so much more than you know, right? And it says he gives power to the weak, and to those who have no might, he increases our strength. How does that make us feel right there? As we think about standing strong, and do we ever feel weak? What does it mean when he gives power to the weak? You ever think about that? I want to read over here in 2 Corinthians. Let's go over to 2 Corinthians. I don't know if I wrote that up there or not. 2 Corinthians 12. What is Paul saying to God? 2 Corinthians 12, and you're looking at verse 7. This is talking to Paul, right? We're talking about the thorn in the flesh. And it says, unless I should be exalted above measure by the abundance of the revelations, a thorn in the flesh was given to me, a messenger of Satan to buffet me, right? A message of Satan to buffet me. That's lest I be exalted above measure. Concerning this thing, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times that it might depart from me. What is in your life that we're saying here that God, I'm just weak, man. I need you to take this thing away from me. I need you to deliver me. I need you to do whatever. And the Lord is saying, look, what did he say to Paul right here? He said, I want this to depart from me. I want you to take this from me. I want you to get rid of it. And he said to me, what? My grace is sufficient. My grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in weakness. What does that mean? That his strength is made perfect in weakness.
He carries us whenever we're weak and can't walk on our own.
He carries us whenever we're weak and we can't walk on our own.
We need to get out of the way.
We need to get out of the way and let him do it. We need to lean on him. And what does it say? My grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in what? In weakness. Where is the Lord trying to bring us? You talk about the upside down kingdom of God, right? The last first. give and you will receive. I mean, it's all countercultural, right? This is telling us that, look, my strength is going to be made perfect when you are weak. When you don't feel like you can stand anymore, what do? We go to God and say, Lord, I can't stand on my own anymore. And he's saying, look, that's the perfect place that I want you. Now I can do something with your life. What is it when I in my own strength think that I can stand? My own strength, I think that I can do it. And God's saying, look, man, all you're doing is you're just, you're not doing this for me, huh? Making things worse, man, is you're just, and he says, and so what is, huh? You're deceiving yourself. I mean, we think that we can do it. And then when something comes on us, it's like we figure out that we can't. And the Lord's like, okay, now I can work with it. Right? Your ego gets in the way. Right? That's happened to me once or twice. And my ego's gotten in the way. Not much. Not today. Right? This says now. It says, so what does Paul say after that? Therefore, most gladly will I what? This is something that we need to get a hold of right here. Most gladly will I rather boast in my infirmities. Talk about the struggle. Talk about the hard times. Do we do that? Do we talk about the hard times and talk about what God's doing in the hard times and talk? No, man, I want to put the hard times behind me. I don't want anybody to know that I'm struggling. I don't want anybody to know that I'm having a hard time. I don't want anybody to know that I'm having, trouble and I need help. Is that right? But he's saying, I'm going to boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Do we understand that when we tell people the struggle that we're going through, what that does for somebody else? What does it do for somebody else when you tell them, man, you stand up and say, you know what, man, I may look like I have it all together, but my life is a mess. Right? And that next person beside you says, you know what, man? I may look like I have it all together, but my life is a mess also. Right? And then the power of Christ is there, and the power of Christ builds you up and says, we're all a mess. Right? If we would tell each other that more often, because I think that especially men don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to say they have a hard time. They don't want to. And so other men look at them and they say, well, Chad or Will or Philip or, they never have any trouble, man. Look at them. So I can't admit that I'm having trouble. Right. And they take all that on and it just kills them. Right. But if we would stand up and say, you know what, I have trouble too. And I need help. And he says, I'm going to boast in that Christ may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities and reproaches and needs and persecutions and distresses. Right? For Christ's sake, for when I am weak, then I am strong. That's when you look at your life and you say, Lord, I'm going to trust you, man. And I'm going to praise you even in the storm. That's a tough thing to do. That's a tough thing to do. I'm telling you that it beats me up. And it says, okay, so as you move down, it says his understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the weak, to those who have no might. He increases your strength. He can't increase your strength if you don't admit that you have weakness. Right? If I don't think that I need to increase my strength and I go to the gym and I don't ever lift any heavier weight, or I don't, because I think I've got it all and I'm never going to get any stronger. But when I say I'm not as strong as I think I am, and I think that I can do a little better, and Christ, you can lift me up and admit that, then you can get stronger, right? In Christ. Now look here, it says, even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. What does that say right there? I think this is important. As you're thinking about the Lord is never weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He's the one that gives me the power. He's the one that increases my strength. And it says, even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. As you look at the people around you, right? As I look at the people around me, who do I go to? And I think this is what he's saying, that if I want to increase my strength, who do I go to? Do I go to people? Because what is this saying? That's what we do. We go to people. I go to my wife. And I think that she's going to build me up. And I think she's going to lift me up. And then people do what? They let you down. Are we right on that? Even the youth, right? Even the young ones that should be strong. Even the youth that shouldn't have any problems. Even they're gonna grow faint and be weary. And the young men, even the ones that should be strong, they're going to utterly fall. You can't depend on any of them to get your strength. That's what it's saying. But how do we do that? Do I go to people and expect people to build me up? You just answer that yourself, man. I'm telling you. Or do you go to the Lord and expect the Lord to build you up? Do I go to people to get my ego built up and to get my self-esteem built up and to get all this stuff built up? It doesn't work. They're going to let you down. You may put all that effort into your wife, right? And she's going to keep, and then she's going to let me down. Quite a bit. She lets me down, man. I've got to go to the Lord. He's the one that gives me strength, right? Even the youth and the young men shall utterly fall. But those who wait on the Lord, that's what he's telling them over here, right? He's saying the Lord will fight for you. Hold your peace. Wait on the Lord. See what he's going to do in your life. Stand strong, stand firm. And it says, when you wait on the Lord, what does it say down there in verse 31 of Isaiah 40? He shall what? Renew their strength. What does it mean to renew your strength? Does anybody feel like they need their strength renewed? Yeah. What does renewing something look like? What does renewing something look like? What?
Building it.
Rebuilding it, refreshing it,
You're the second wind.
getting that second wind. Look, I'm turning something in. I'm turning my weakness in, right? That when I'm at the low and I'm like, Lord, I can't do anymore. I can't stand anymore. I can't. And I'm literally taking that. I'm saying, Lord, I'm giving this to you because I know you can renew this. And I want you to give me in return your strength, your ability, your confidence. I need you to do that. Just like you renew a book, or renew a house, you renew whatever it is, right? You're getting something. You're literally taking something off of you, exchanging it in, and getting something back from Christ. That's what that's saying. Renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall soar with wings like eagles. And I say here, when the crisis comes, right? When the crisis comes, do we mount up and soar? Yeah, most of the time, right? If you think about a crisis in your life, what do you do? You're like, you take that thing on and all of a sudden you mount up and you soar and you can deal with that, right? And it says when the crisis comes or whatever, they shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. What about in the challenges we face every day? You're running and you're going and you're not getting weary as you get your strength in Christ, right? But then this last part I think is they shall walk and not faint. I wrote here, in crisis, God enables us to soar. We believe that as we go to him, he enables us to soar. And it says, and to run when challenges are many and walk faithfully in day-to-day demands. And what I wrote, it is much harder to walk day to day than soar in crisis or challenging times. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is what he says. He says, they shall walk and not faint. Look, we have to understand that in the crisis, I do well. In the challenges, I do well. When is it that I really have a hard time? In the day-to-day, the mundane, the over and over, and it says, man, I'm telling you, as you trust in God, you can do the day-to-day and you're going to do it without fainting. You're going to keep on going on. You got to keep coming back, Lord, but he's going to allow you to do it. I'm telling you, the day-to-day is the hard thing that you think about. I don't know how to do the day-to-day a lot of times. If I don't have a crisis, I don't have it. I'm just kind of going mundane and going. I'm like, man, this gets hard, Lord. I'm sick of this, man. I want something new. I want, so anyway, the Lord will fight for you and you shall hold your peace. And so this is what I think it's interesting that who says this to the people? Who says that to the people? Back over here in Exodus 14. Who is saying that? That's Moses saying that to the people, right? And so this could be us. We have people in our life that are struggling or having a hard time, and we're saying, look, just stand up, hold your peace, stand strong to God, and I'm going to encourage you, and I'm going to, you're okay, right? And then the Lord said to Moses, look, verse 15. The Lord says to Moses, why do you cry to me? What is that? What is that saying right there? As Moses is encouraging the people, right? And he's strong for the people. How does he feel?
Broken.
Feels broken, right? And he's like, look, and so how much time do we spend encouraging other people and encouraging our family and encouraging our wife or encouraging people? And I'm like, you can do it, man. You can do it. And then I go home and I'm like, man, I'm crying out to God, God, when are you gonna help me? Right? Am I alone in that? That's what he's saying to me. He's saying, Moses, why are you crying out to me? I've already given you the promise. I've already told you we're coming through this thing. And Moses is like, I get that. And I've told them, I've told everybody else, but I don't feel it. Right? That's tough, man. And the Lord says, look, Moses, don't cry to me. Tell the children of Israel to go forward. I've already told you what to tell them. Go forward. Take a step. Moses, you need to take a step forward. You know, we can't, just because we encourage other people and lift other people up, we can't stop in our walk. Does that happen a lot of times? That I'm encouraging you so much that I'm not reading, I'm not studying, I'm not doing my thing, and I'm dying, but I'm encouraging everybody else. I mean, look at preachers, right? I mean, look at preachers and look at people that are doing that. They're giving all this, and then they're some of the most depressed people that you've ever seen. Right? Suicide and the lawyers and the ones that look successful and they're helping everybody else, and the doctors that are helping everybody else, and they're not getting the help. Right? And they're not doing their walk. The Lord's telling us, look, do what I'm telling you to do. Do the same thing that you're telling the people to do. You know, you've got to take care of yourself. Right? We've got to take care of ourselves. I can't help you if I'm not helping myself. And I need you to help me, and I need to help you. That's what we get in connection groups, and that's what we get in church, and that's what we get when we have our people that are grounded in Christ, right? It says, why do you cry out to me? Tell the children of Israel to go forward. And he says, look, lift up your rod, stretch it out over the sea and divide it, right? You're going to go across on dry ground, okay? And I'm going to be honored. That's what it says down there. I will gain honor over Pharaoh, over all his army and his chariots and his horsemen. And then the Egyptians shall know that I'm the Lord. Look, when I have gained honor for myself over Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. What is that saying? What is that saying? Why are they going through the things that they're going through? Why are they going through it? They're going to be the witness, right? They're going to be the ones that are going to see Pharaoh's army destroyed. They're the ones that people are going to talk about even going further on. Did you see what God did through my children? Right? Why are we going through the things that we're going through? We've got to get our focus off ourselves. I mean, and you know, do we get down? And do we get, you know, discouraged? And why do we get that way? Because I'm making it all about me, right? And I'm thinking, Lord, you're doing this to me, and you're hammering me, and Lord, I'm doing good for you, and I'm trying to whatever it is. And it's like, no, it's not about you, Chad. If you would look and say, whatever's going on in my life, and I'm telling you, I look at even with my kids and with different situations, I say, God, you're doing something in that situation so that you can be glorified and so more people be glorified. Right? That's hard to, everything works together for good to those that are called, right? To those that love God. May not necessarily be the way you want it to work out, but it all works out for good. It all works out to glorify God. It's all about Him. Get your focus off of yourself. Get my focus off of myself. Go through just like Paul says, man, I rejoice in those times. I boast in my infirmities. I boast in my persecution. So God can be lifted up and He can be glorified in my life. When you get to the end, it's not going to be about, Chad, what'd you get and how much. No, it's about how much did you lift me up? How much did you love me? How much did you witness for me? How many people did you lead to me? It's not about you, right? So one more thing on this, and then we're going to move forward. It says in verse 19, and I think this is pretty interesting right here. It says, the angel of God, who went before the camp of Israel. Who is the angel of God right here? Who is the angel of God? Do we know? Is it Jesus? What did it say? It's the Lord, right? Exodus 13:21. Go over there back to Exodus 13:21. It says, and the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead the way, by night in a pillar of fire to give them light. And the Lord. Then you come over here and it says the angel of God, who is the Lord. Right? This is the Lord. This is what do they call that? What are the Bible scholars? A theophany. Right? What is that? A pre-incarnate Christ. Christ is there. Right? Pre-incarnate. That Amber Alert, man. I think that's the same one. I don't know. But he's saying the Lord went before them, right? So what did he do? He was going before them, right? And so it says, who went before the camp of Israel moved, okay? And went behind them And the pillar of the cloud went from before them and stood behind them. It did this for a reason. So it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. So you have the camp of the Egyptians here. The Lord moves from here and he goes to here, goes between them, steps between them, right? And what does he do when he does that? He stood behind. So it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. Thus it was a cloud of darkness to the one, and it gave light by night to the other, so that the one did not come near the other all night long. What's it actually doing? It's saying that he put these guys in darkness. He lit up the pathway for the Israelites, right? So they can see their path. What does that also sound like if we put that into our terms today? Let's look over here. This may be stepping out. I don't know. 1 Corinthians. I want to look over in 1 Corinthians, and you're talking about the Lord darkened the Egyptians so they couldn't see what he was doing, right? And he lit up the children of Israel so that they could see the path that they were going. Over here in 1 Corinthians 1. 1 Corinthians 1. I'm going to look over here. We're going to go down to verse 26. 1 Corinthians 1, verse 26. And I want you to think about that this is what the Lord does in our this is what the Lord does, right? What's up, man? In verse,
We need to bring him out. He'll be fine.
he's wet, man. Thank you for serving. Appreciate that. 1 Corinthians 1, verse 26. For you see your calling, brethren, and this we're thinking about, this is darkness to the people that don't believe, and this is light to the people that do believe, right? And I want you to think about what the world thinks about us, right? Because what did he say over here? That as you look at this, he says that, and I'm looking over here, and if you look at Exodus 14, stay over there in 1 Corinthians, but Exodus 14 and verse 3, for Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, they are bewildered by the land, the wilderness has closed them in. I will harden Pharaoh's heart, so they will pursue them. I will gain honor over Pharaoh and over all his army. Right? He's saying, look, they're going to think you're crazy. Right? What does it say over here when you look at this? For you see your calling, brethren, that not many wise according to the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called. What is he saying? Who does the Lord call? Is he calling the mighty and the
People who look like they're fools.
I mean, literally, man, it says that he is not calling the people that are mighty. He's not calling the noble. He's not calling the ones of great esteem. Look at the disciples that he called. They're all a bunch of knuckleheads, right?
Yes.
I mean, is that true? I mean, look at them. Look at us. I'm number one knucklehead. And I mean, you guys might be high and mighty. Amen. Right? This is who God calls. This is who God calls them. And it says that many wise according to the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called, but God has chosen. Now look here, the foolish things of the world to put to shame the wise. God has chosen the weak things of the world to put to shame the things which are mighty. And the base things of the world and the things which are despised of God, he has chosen. What does that look like? When the world looks at us, what do they look at us as? What do they look at Christians as? Weak, foolish, weak-minded.
Yep.
Don't have a clue. Just like he led the army of Pharaoh, he said they're going to look at them and say they're dismayed. They don't know what they're doing. I'm going to put them right into the ocean. I'm going to cover them up, and they're going to be gone. Right? The Lord is saying to the world, man, and I want you to get this. The world doesn't understand what we're doing. The world doesn't understand Christianity. The world looks at us like we are what? Like we're weak. They look at us like we're clueless. They look at us like we're on the path to destruction, that we don't, what do you mean you're giving and you're serving and you're doing and that doesn't even make sense. Right? But God uses that in our lives. And he says, and he uses that which are despised, God has chosen, and the things which are not, to bring to nothing the things that are. He is using us to bring the things that are we don't see, to bring them to fruition in faith. That's what God's using us for. And the world thinks we're crazy until they see what? Some of the things that are coming to pass. I look at our We got a group and I mean, and I've seen in that group, man, prayers that we're praying and just things coming from nothing that you'd be like, man, there's no way this can change. And it's changing because God is changing things that no flesh is Lord in his presence, but of him you are in Christ Jesus, who became for us wisdom from God, the righteousness, the sanctification, and the redemption. That is what Christ is does. So what is our responsibility to the world? Because they already think that we're foolish. They think that we don't have a clue. They think that we're following something that is just out of touch, right? More than we get in. What do we need to do about that? Do we just need to be quiet and not tell them and just let them go into destruction? Is that what we need to do? We need to represent them. We need to tell them that when something goes on in our life, that when one of our children gets saved, or when something, or when we get healed, and when we get, so our marriages change, and we need to give credit to God. Right? A lot of times we go to corporate prayers or to people and I'm praying about this and if only this can change, and then God answers that prayer. And then what do? Never give him credit. Never come back to him and say, you know what? When this happened to me, you remember, you tell the world, and you tell your family, when this happened, remember we talked about God was going to answer that thing? And now he's answered it. And I'm going to give him praise. And this is just a confirmation of who God is in our life. I'm telling you, we got to do that. But anyway, they walk through that. They go on the dry ground. They never see him again. And that's that. All things work together for good. If they had gone the other way, if they had gone back into Egypt, if they'd done whatever, where would the Egyptians be? What about the Amalekites? What do we know about the Amalekites? What happened with the Amalekites? Anybody know? What did the Lord tell them? Take them out, man. Destroy them all. Oxen, kids, children, women, men. Don't want any of them. Right? And they said, well, I'm just gonna keep Saul, right? I'm just gonna keep the best, and I'm gonna offer that for a sacrifice, Lord. We're gonna be okay. And what happened to the Amalekites? They keep showing up. They keep coming around, right? The Lord did this so the Egyptians wouldn't keep showing up and they could move forward out of that thing. And he could get the glory in that. Okay. So you never know why he's doing the things that he's doing in our lives, but he gets the glory of it. And tell somebody about it when he does something and when he answers something and when he does something in your life. So they know, because they think we're a bunch of fools, a bunch of knuckleheads. You don't know what you're doing, right? All right, let's move over here. We're going now. So this is what we were talking about. This is in Psalm 34. We're going to start. This is still under Romans 8:28. Okay, this is still under that promise, but Psalm 34. We're going to read over there. And we're going to read verse 8. And then we're going to go back. Because what I asked you guys to do last week. Anybody remember? I know Andy remembered because he brought it up to me. Anybody remember what I asked you to do last week? Or did everybody else forget it? Bunch of knuckleheads, man. No. Huh? I do love y'all though, man. I do love you. It's like, that Ferris Bueller. Anybody? No, nobody. Sorry. All right. So we're over here in Psalm 34. Now we went to this verse and we're going to go backwards from this verse, right? Talking about God's goodness. And it says in Psalm 34, verse 8, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is a man who trusts in him. This is David that is saying this, right? What does God want us to, what does he want us to do? Taste and see, right? What does it mean to taste and see? What does that mean? Try it. Does that mean to nibble on it and take a sip and just nibble on it? I mean, he wants us to take. If Sharon makes a Thanksgiving meal, and all the time she spent and all that, has this big meal, and I go over there and I take a thimble full of mashed potatoes and I dip my finger in the gravy and do I know what that meal is like? No, right? God's saying, taste and see how good I am. I want you to. And what do we do? What do we do with God? What do we do with God? Do we get in there and taste and see how good he is, or do we just kind of nibble on the top, man? And I'm just kind of, man, I'm doing great because I'm doing my Bible verse of the day and I'm reading that and I'm taking 30 seconds in the morning and that's better than nothing, right? But is that tasting and seeing how good God is when I do that? No. And then I think that I can do God's work and I can go out and I can put my armor on and I can be a witness and I can know, man. He's saying, taste and see that I am good, right? See what it's all about. See what Christianity is all about. So why could David say this? At this point, is it always easy in David's life? And this was the question, where does this come from? We're gonna back up and we're gonna talk about how he gets to this point. I can't taste and see how good something is until I see the effort that was put into it. I don't understand how good salvation is until what? I see everything Christ went and died for on the cross and everything that he gave up and everything that he did for me. I can't understand how good that pie is or that meal is until I see the effort that Sharon put into that thing. Then you really see how good that thing is. You're like, there was a bunch of stuff that went into this thing. And I can understand now, right? We just figure out that, things just kind of go okay. And there, that's not tasting and seeing. So we're going to go over here where this comes from. Because did he ever have any struggles? Did David ever have any struggles? He had a lot of struggles, huh? A couple, right? He had a couple struggles. We're going to go to 1 Samuel. I want you to see, because it takes something to get to the point where we can taste and see how good God is. It doesn't happen just rolling through life and thinking that we're going to fall into that. We've got to do some work on our part, right? And you're looking at 1 Samuel. We're going to chapter 21. This is since nobody did their homework, except Andy did his homework, but he won't talk. So, but over here in chapter 21 of 1 Samuel 21, this is where this begins on David getting to the point where he can taste and see God's goodness. Okay. So as I look at this, what is coming up to chapter 21 in 1 Samuel? Do we know? Do we know where David, what's going on in David's life? He's fleeing. Who's he fleeing from? Saul. Yep. Why is he fleeing from Saul? Saul wants to kill him. Now, what do we know about David at this point? Should David be fleeing? Does he have to flee? I don't know. That's the kicker, man. I'm right over here, and you look at 1 Samuel 16, and you look at verse 11, the second portion of verse 11, or just look at 11. And Samuel said to Jesse, "Are all the young men here?" And he said, "There remains yet the youngest, and there he is keeping the sheep." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Send and bring him, for we will not sit down till he comes." He sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, bright-eyed, and good-looking. The Lord said, "Arise, anoint him, for he is the one." Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. And so Samuel arose and went to Ramah. And then you look in the next verse and it says what? But the Spirit what? The Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a distressing spirit from the Lord troubled him. So you've got right here, David is on the run from Saul. Saul's trying to kill him. David's like, "What in the world, man? Don't you know that what happened with him? He's already killed Goliath, right? He's already had the victory there. He's already been anointed king." And he's saying, "Man, do all things work together for good? Because I'm on the run for my life, man. Why am I running, Lord? Why am I doing this? I should be anointed. I should be living my best life. I should be." And no, here I am, man, living out in the wilderness, and I'm just struggling, right? I mean, everything happens for a purpose. David needed this in his life. But as you look at it, so you start in verse 21 or in chapter 21, and this is where we can get into some interesting discussions. David came to Nob, to Ahimelech, the priest, right? And what was Ahimelech's response to David? It says he was afraid, man. He's afraid of David. Why is he afraid? Why are you alone and no one is with you? He knows that David's been anointed king. He knows that David was the one that killed Goliath. He knows that David, why are you out here looking crazy and looking dirty, and you're hungry and you're here, and what is going on? I mean, that's what he's saying to him. And David takes the place and he says to him, he says, Look, David, what does he do? And I love the Bible that it doesn't just show people's good points.
Lied.
Right? I mean, the Bible is real. If nothing else, you could believe Christianity because they're not going to have a book that teaches all the bad things about people and all the struggles and all the things they went through and all the leading up to Christ, right? You're just not going to see it. But it says that he went in there and he lied to him. And he said, the king ordered me on some business, do not let anybody know about this thing. And he says, I'm hungry. I need something to eat. So what is he given? What's he given? He's given the holy bread, right? Is that for David? No, it's not for David. Now, is that a sin that he got the holy bread? Is that a sin that he got the holy bread?
Find out later.
Huh?
No.
You find out in Matthew 12, right? Jesus refers back to this when he's talking to his disciples. So he was just hungry, man. He needed food. So he gave him the food, right? And then it comes down, you have this character in here in verse 7. This is there was a servant of Saul, which this is gonna make sense. Doeg, an Edomite, right? He's in there. He's seeing this whole thing going on. He's like, man, you're giving this holy bread to David. What is going on? I don't remember, Saul sending him on a mission, man. I know there's something weird about this whole situation. And then David says to him again, he says, look, is there not a sword on hand, a javelin, a sword, a weapon? Because I don't even have my sword. And the guy's like, what? The priest is like, you don't have any food. You're out here. You don't have a sword. What's going on? Well, I'm on a secret mission. Right? I'm on a secret mission. This Doeg is looking at him like, you're crazy, man. And then he says, the sword of Goliath, the Philistine. Now I want you, this is David's mentality right here. As he is running, sometimes, is he focusing on God as he's running? Is he focusing on God? Not really. Kind of like when the Israelites left Egypt, where they focused on God, they would just focus on their course. When we go out in the world and we go for a day to day and are we focusing on God? Or are we just kind of letting circumstances come to us? And then when they come to us, we kind of react to them. Is that true? And then what happens when we react? What happens to David here when he reacts? He lies. He doesn't tell the truth. He doesn't trust God. He isn't a good witness. Right? And I just, in my mind, I just got to think that on the day to day, as we go through life, we continually have to focus on God. I'm pray without ceasing, right? Giving thanks always, recognizing God, putting on your armor every day, being ready to stand for Christ, right? David was not there, even though he was anointed king, even though he had the Spirit of the Lord on him. Listen, I can be saved and have God's Spirit on me. If I don't read and study and pray and get around God's people, what happens to me? What happens to you? The fire goes out, man. I get in a place where I shouldn't be. I start doing things I shouldn't do. I start acting ways I shouldn't act. Right? That's David right here. He's just running for his life. He's in survival mode. You can't put off on him too much because that's us. A lot of times. I'm just running in survival mode. And I'm just reacting to things coming. And I'm not focusing on the things I need to focus on, right? Anyway, Doeg sees all this going on. Okay. And what do we know about, let's ask her what happens, and then we'll get back to what we're talking about. But what happens to when Doeg the Edomite sees what David did and sees David? Does anybody know what the consequences of David's scheming and lying are? Do we know what the consequences are? Anybody think about it? Pretty severe consequences. You did what? No. Let's say it again. Yeah, see, Bible scholar. All right.
Say it again.
Let's look over here. We're going to look at it, right? Because I'm telling you, this is consequences. We think we can tell little white lies and we can do little things and we can, I'm just not telling the whole truth, or I'm just kind of avoiding the truth, or I'm just not, whatever that is, right? So we're in 1 Samuel 22. Okay. And we're going to go over here to verse 11. Okay, and I just want you to see the consequences that went on just because of something that David was not focused on God and told a lie and kind of did some shady stuff there. And I just want to realize that we think it's just a small, things that we say to our people, our kids, our family, the world, that as a Christian, and they take that to heart and they're like, wait a minute. Okay, so let's get into it. Right here, verse 11, 1 Samuel 22, verse 11. So the king sent to call Ahimelech the priest, the son of Hittab. Well, you look up in verse 9. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, who was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse go into Nob to Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub. And he inquired of the Lord, for he gave him provisions and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Right? So he says, I saw this, because Saul's like, look, everybody, if you look up above this, everybody's against me. Everybody hates me. Nobody loves me. I'm the king, and he has this spirit on him, right? And Doeg says, look, I saw David go in there, and David was running, and David got food, and David got the sword. And so he says, the king says in verse 11, sent to Ahimelech, the priest, who gave it to him. Did the priest know anything about it? Did the priest know anything that was going on, man? All he sees is David, and he's like, man, we know that he's for God, man, because he killed Goliath, man. He saved Israel. He's anointed the king, man. So of course I'm going to do. He's telling me that he's on a mission. Of course I'm going to give him this. So he goes to Ahimelech, the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests who were in Nob, and they all came to the king. That's Saul, right? And Saul said, "Hear now, son of Ahitub." He answered, "Here I am, my lord." Saul said, "And why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse? Why have you and David conspired against me? And that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of the God from him, that he should rise against me to lie in wait, as is this day." This is Saul's mindset, right? You never know who you're talking to when you don't tell them the truth.
That's right.
You don't know what they're thinking. You don't know how that's going to land, right? We can tell somebody something, and just I don't even know an example, but we can tell people something, and they're in a state of mind, and they take that a whole different way, and their life changes from that, right?
Yeah, need to go around, right? Because Saul already knows that he is not
Right.
and then Doeg knows that he's only telling Saul half the story,
Right.
and then David's lying, and it just turns into this big old ugly mess.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
And that you can, and even if that's not, with David and the priest, it wasn't what it seemed, but Doeg saw it in a different light. And it's the same thing with us. If I'm over here chatting with somebody and they hear half the story, right? And I'm saying, well, did you hear about John, man? And I'm just going to tell you this to pray for him, because everything's. And then somebody else here said, did you hear what John did, man? He went out here and did, and it just gets into it, right? That's how stories go, right? Consequences, you never know how bad they are. No, I'm not. No, he didn't do anything. Say, daughter, did he say something? Anyway, and it says here, and I think he says that you should lie against me. So Ahimelech answered the king and said, "And who among all your servants is as faithful as David?" He's like, look, David's faithful. What are you even talking about? As David, who is the king's son-in-law, who goes at your bidding and is honorable in your house. Did I then begin to inquire of God from? Far be it from me. Let not the king impute anything to a servant, or to any of this in my house, the house of my father. For your servant knew nothing of all this, little or much. I didn't know anything that went on in this thing. Right? I'm in the dark on this. And the king said, "You shall surely die. Ahimelech, you and all your father's house." And if you look down here, and it says that then he goes to his people and he says, "I want you to kill all these priests." And they all say, "I'm not doing that. Are you kidding me? I'm going to kill God's people." And then Doeg, looking to get a step up, what's Doeg said? He says, "Man, I'll kill the priests, man." Yeah. And he says, so Doeg down here in verse 18, and the king said to Doeg, "You turn and kill the priests." And Doeg knew that it wasn't what it seemed to be, but he did it anyway, because he's just trying to get that favor with the king. right? We do a lot of things trying to get favor with people that we don't need. I'm just, that's big time right there. Doeg the Edomite turned and struck the priests and killed on that day 85 men who wore a linen ephod. 85 people died because of that. Because of that little thing that David did. David didn't know anything different, right? Doeg, he knew something was wrong with that thing. Saul's just crazy. 85 priests died because of that. That's crazy, man. Anyway, you go over here further, and I guess, well, it's time to quit, man. So here we are, man. Now you get a second chance. You get a second chance to do your homework. Right? 1 Samuel. We're going 1 Samuel. We're going to start out next week. 1 Samuel, we're going to go to verse 10. This is interesting. This is the course that gets David to the point where he says, taste and see that the Lord is good. What is the course that he goes through to get there? You can start in 1 Samuel 21, verse 10, and go from there and figure out how he gets to the point where he says that, okay? So, any of these things that we see here, I meant to ask you to see if anybody saw anything on our treasures. I know some people like to do that, some people don't like to do that. Anybody see anything on there? Huh? Learning, yes. What do we see about learning? There you go, Aunt Carolyn. You're okay. Just see the screen. You're all right. Look at these things. These are what we're looking at. We're looking at, does anybody see anything that we went over today on that as we look at it?
Well, I think had there been prayer,
Had there been prayer?
they would have been able to see God, right, in God's will versus
That's right.
your own way.
If David had gone and done personal prayer, right, then he would have been able to see God, right? And we can relate that to our lives, that if we involve in prayer, right, we can see God. If we do not get involved in prayer, we don't see God, right? Right? Learning, right? Learning is, we're learning about, just learning gives us clarity and gives us freedom, that we don't have to lie, that we can trust God, right? We can understand that we can rest, get renewed in Him. And as we learn that, we have freedom, that we don't have to run as hard as we run all the time, right? Trying to get things of the world and man, God is telling us just rest, man, and stand and see my salvation.
Moses also got validated when he did pray.
Moses also got validated when he did pray.
Right? He said, hey, what are you doing?
That's right.
I told you.
I already told you. That's right. Moses prayed, validated, and saw God, right? You have these relationships, man. If we love others, right? If we love others, we build relationships. If we don't love others, what happens? David was so concerned with himself. Who did he love? This whole thing. Who was he loving?
Himself.
He was loving himself. And because he loved himself, he didn't build a relationship with anybody in there. And it ended up with death, right? You didn't have joy in there. You had death. But as we love other people, build relationships, we have joy in our lives. And that's what we're doing, right? Building relationships, loving other people, doing that, right? Anybody else? Anybody else in there? Nope. All right. So next week, it's the homework. Samuel 21. And then we're going to start there. So then we'll get to it. 1 Samuel 21. How do we get to tasting and see the goodness of the Lord? You got to experience some stuff to see that. It just doesn't happen until God shows us some things. Okay. So we're going to pray, and then we're going to